Hey, it's Benjie Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Christopher B. Soltis. We're going to be discussing his amazing book, Return to Spirit, available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. And I will say that Chris was brought to our network by some of the best publishers in the business, Good River Print and Media Publishing. So if you or anybody you know have a book that they'd like moved, people, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give and contact Good River and have them move it for you. You can find out more information on them at goodriverprintandmedia.com. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Chris here on the line. Chris, first and foremost, man, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How you doing today?
Doing great, Benjie. Thanks for having me. Honored to be invited onto your program. I feel pretty special to be considered a person of distinction and an honorable author. You and your father created an amazing platform for people such as myself, being a first-time author, to promote our works. We took so much time and energy and effort to create. I'd also like to thank the people at Good River Media for doing the legwork with coordinating our schedules. Sometimes it feels like the stars need to align for certain events to happen. So, much appreciated.
Well, Chris, listen, man, your words are too kind. Thank you for that. And listen, you had to lay down the foundation. You had to write the book in order for us to invite you on. So you started it, and we appreciate it. Now, Chris, before we go into the book, man, because I know we have a lot to discuss, start by telling us a little bit more about yourself and your background, please.
Yeah, sure thing, Benjie. I currently reside in Monmouth County, New Jersey, not too far from the ocean, and I work in the financial services industry, supervising advisors during the day. Outside of normal business hours, I play in a band called Enjoy, and that's Enjoy with an exclamation point at the end. We're also available on, we got a couple albums out on Spotify, and our band website is enjoytheband.com. My twin brother and two friends from our hometown founded the band. This year was actually our 20th anniversary, and we surpassed the 2,000 gig mark this year as well. So I've been playing guitar over 30 years. I also play banjo when we perform acoustic shows. I don't like to sit still for too long and lead a pretty active lifestyle. I love skiing, biking, paddleboarding, golf, traveling, attending concerts, seeing live music, Yankees baseball. I'm big into researching family history and genealogy, and spending time with my two nephews.
Chris, that is fantastic, man. And listen, you had me up until Yankees baseball, and then it just kind of all went down the drain there, Chris, because, I'm just, of course, playing. I'm not a big baseball fan, but I do support all the home teams, being a New England boy myself. And for the past close to 15 years now, I've been in Southern California, but still root for all the New England teams. So, Red Sox fan at heart, but I'm just having some fun with you.
Understood. Hey, I'm a fourth generation Yankee fan, and I grew up playing ball. So
There you go. Chris, without further ado, man, let's jump right in. Return to Spirit. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to. Well, that's the short title. The actual copyrighted title is Return to Spirit, a Western yogi's first-person account of spontaneous Kundalini Awakening and candid look at spirituality involving the evolution and expansion of consciousness in the 21st century. So it's autobiographical. It explains my process of moving through some hardships in my life and making a conscious decision to really focus on self-care and my personal health. At the time, I didn't have any knowledge of the discipline of yoga. It was at the recommendation of my brother's mother-in-law, who said, and I quote, "You should try yoga. It calms the monkey mind." Well, if there was one thing I needed at that time in my life, it was to quiet the internal noise in my head. So it started slowly and, took a beginner's class twice a week, eventually working my way up to more advanced classes. And Yeah, at one point, I was in the yoga studio taking, hot classes heated to over 100 degrees for a week straight. It became the primary panacea for any woes, stresses, and anxiety in my life. After over 2 years of dedicated practice is when I had, I guess, in what modern terms would call a spiritual awakening. In the yoga community, the term is Kundalini. It's this primordial energy said to lay dormant in everyone and is associated with the chakras or energy centers in the body coming into alignment. I provide a very detailed description of the hows, whys, when and where. This experience had a profound effect on my level of awareness and pretty much altered my perception of the physical world.
Chris, next thing I want to talk about is the title of your book and the book cover, right? Because there's something that is so intriguing about it. It instantly grabs your attention and sucks you in. Now, talk to us about the title and the book cover and why you chose each of them to be the representation for your book.
Yeah, sure. Well, the cover, it's mostly black and it has, like a character of someone sitting in easy seat, which is a meditative pose. And that character is all white and it has the 7 chakras aligned through the center of the body with different colors. It's the colors of the rainbow, starting at the root and going up, from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and then white would be at the top. And then there's like an inverted triangle coming out of the top of the head. And it's just this really nice, just design of like all the colors of the rainbow just scattering out into, the universe. So, the title, it really came together out of the blue one day. It was like a bunch of words and phrases were just rattling around in my head and eventually formulated into this cohesive title. I wish I had a better explanation, but, what's the primary focus and objective? I'll break it down, some of the words used in the title. A yogi is a practitioner of yoga. Yoga is a discipline where, the aim is spiritual illumination. The word in Sanskrit actually means join or to yoke or unite. What are you uniting? The individual consciousness with that of the universal consciousness, or what Deepak Chopra would call cosmic consciousness. So I found it to be akin to a different trinity, union of mind, body, and spirit. I used the description Western to describe me growing up in Western culture or civilization, not Eastern, as yoga was developed in the East and practiced for thousands of years prior to being introduced to our culture. Someone raised in a Hindu, Buddhist, or Jain religious household in India would have a completely different perspective on the practice than myself growing up in, a Catholic household in New Jersey. It was spontaneous because it came out of nowhere. I've learned that there are active and passive approaches to raising this energy. I didn't knowingly and consciously work to experience this. I wrote it as straightforward as possible and discuss other things spiritual in nature, such as, astrology, numerology, synchronicity, even terms used in the Christian, Hebrew, Buddhist, and Islamic religions, yoga philosophy, and the ancient Egyptian religion, which was a spiritually focused culture. I know it's a mouthful, but it's pretty much, a lot of stuff jam-packed in there.
I love it. Because listen, this is a journey that we're taking, right? So let's take that journey. Next one here, I want to talk about inspiration for a second. What would you say? I mean, were there artists that inspired you?
Not from, I guess, I always grew up with I wanted to be a guitar player my whole life. I originally, went to college to study jazz performance, but a primary influencer from a guitarist, composer, and songwriter perspective is Trey Anastasio. He's the founding member of the band Fish and solo artist. Music just infinitely pours out of him. Truly amazing. Other than a myriad of guitar players I could rattle off, I've recently read some biographies on amazing yogis from the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries that are filled with just eye-popping and unbelievable stories. It's just, unbelievable, crazy.
There you have it. And what type of inspiration helped you create the narrative for this particular book, Chris?
I guess the main inspiration stemmed from, the heightened state of consciousness and volume of energy I was operating on after my awakening. For brevity's sake, I'll use the letters KA for Kundalini Awakening. For a period of about 15 to 16 months after my KA, I was on cloud nine, just brimming with love and light, absolute bliss. I had boundless energy, required minimal sleep, sometimes only needing 2.5 hours, required less food, had increased stamina and strength, and was able to instantly do advanced yoga poses I wasn't able to do prior to my KA. In fact, I did a headstand before our call. I was at the gym sometimes by 6 a.m. doing weight training, then pop on the stepper for 40 minutes, and I get home and do a high intensity, interval training workout in my bedroom all before work. After work, I would, do a 90-minute yoga class, and I wasn't even tired by dinner time. I kept a digital journal to document thoughts and concepts relating to topics on yoga, the cosmos, and evolution that seemingly came from another dimension, as well as a few paranormal, supernatural experiences that occurred. Even a potential solution to an issue that plagues the world today, formulated out of thin air, I wrote about. How hard it is to add digital serialized tracking to every bullet sold, mandate hand signature locks for gun owners, and create a database to track everything. I'm glad I was able to capture what I did when they popped up, as I don't think I've been able to recall these if I waited too long after my KA.
There you have it. People, again, we're here on the line with Christopher B. Soltis. We're discussing his book, Return to Spirit, available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. Chris, next question for you here, man. And I think it's safe to assume the answer to this next one, but you know what happens when you assume, so I'm not going to do that to you. I have you here on the line. Why would you say that this book needed to be written, Chris?
To teach, to educate, to raise awareness about the transformative nature of the practice and discipline of yoga, to provide direct insight into the circumstances, life choices, and with that, missteps that all went to leading to my awakening. So others who are interested in potentially pursuing their own personal evolution may have a sound template to work off of. From what I gather, KA is a very rare experience. It's as if it happened so I could write about it for the benefit of any reader. We're on a bigger scale, humanity. We're all contributors in life, and the greatest, most noble acts one can engage in is to serve your fellow man.
And in addition to your own personal experience, what type of research did you do in preparation for the book?
I read a lot of books. There are over 20 titles I placed at the end of the book as suggested reading. Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now was very helpful. I read that twice within a year. Also, tons of Google searches, as there's a wealth of information online at the touch of the finger. During this time, my brain was really firing on all cylinders, so there may have been a period I was reading 2 or 3 books at the same time. I'm a firm believer that knowledge is power, and we all have a limited time on this planet to do as we wish, but that time should not be squandered. Mm-hmm. Hell, 500 years ago, the majority of people in Europe couldn't read or write. It was reserved for, clergy and nobility. Look what we all have access to today, and, today's day and age. We're spoiled. We really are.
Absolutely. No, I can definitely agree with that one. What would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book, Chris?
Highlight. I think I have to break that into a two-parter. I'll give you a two-part response. One, as a good chunk of the book is autobiographical, it forced me to reflect and dig up some of my earliest memories, highlights and lowlights of my childhood, and material events that have helped shape who I am today. Mm-hmm. Everything from getting my head stuck in wooden Venetian blinds at my grandma's house when I was 4 and accidentally hanging myself, to waking up in the middle of the night months after my KA to find a spirit about 3 or 4 feet from my bed reading what appeared to be a gigantic book that was on my nightstand. It was wild. Yeah, you he looked indigenous to, the American Southwest or Central South America. After I rubbed my eyes to see if I was still dreaming, I refocused my gaze and to see him bent down staring at me before vanishing into the ether. I'll never forget that. The second part regarding the highlights and reading the book, the second part regarding the highlights and writing the book was the actual process itself. It took me a good year and a half to get all the pages of my first draft completed. Rang in over something like 530 pages. So it's nowhere near that high in page length, and cutting the fat and deciding what stayed in and what got cut was fun all to itself. My system was after work, the work day was over. I'd have dinner, showered, relaxed. I'd focus about 30, 40 minutes on writing one good page. I sat on my bed with my laptop and a candle burning. I never write more than a page and a half during a session. And I was okay with this. I was in no rush. Not like I had a deadline or any publisher to check in with. So,
as we start to close out of this fantastic interview, man, last couple of questions here. And I know we've covered so much today, but what is one thing, if we can boil it down, one thing that you really want our listening audience here, through people of distinction, to take from today's interview?
Yeah, sure. Great. It might sound cliche, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. No matter how dark it can get and what trials and tribulations are thrown in front of you, with hope, faith, love, and patience, you will always find your way through it. You just have to do the work, trust the process. It's a big saying in the yoga studio. And of course, know you're not alone. Don't ever be too proud to ask for help. God's with us, with all of us. My work was, after having a string of unfortunate events, putting my physical, emotional, and spiritual health first. I didn't even know what happened to me was even a thing or a possibility. I didn't read or study anything and books are online about spirituality or yoga prior to my awakening. I wasn't looking for anything special to happen. I was just doing what I was doing, and then bang, this event changed my entire perspective on life, reality, God, and the universe. It's available to anyone. I just provided enough data and examples to assist people in possibly getting their mind, body, and spirit prepared. So if you do happen to have an awakening, it doesn't hurt you or drive you crazy. I've actually read that's a real possibility, as the energy can be too much to handle if you're not ready for it.
Wow.
I don't consider myself any more special than the next person. Once the ego is dissolved, one realizes that we're all equal. Also, spirituality is, it's like on the other end of the spectrum from materialism. And what I mean by that is it has nothing to do with how much money or property one has or imaginary social status. It's not driven by the ego. You can't buy or pay for this experience to happen. There's a great quote from the Bible that pretty much sums up that explanation. It's Matt 19:24, and it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. And that's like akin to this energy surging through my body for that period after my awakening was akin to feeling heaven on earth. There's no other way to describe it. Just ecstasy. It really was.
Chris, I love having this platform, man. I'm an artist myself, and I'm in a different medium, but I love being able to pay it forward, in a sense, to other artists out there listening in. Now, in this instance, I want to take a second for any new writers listening into this interview right now. What are some words of wisdom that you can offer them about the journey they're getting ready to take? Right
from the heart. Write about something you're truly passionate about. You will absolutely pick up more from the experience than if you were writing about something where it felt like a book report. Also, don't worry about getting your grammar right first time around. I hired a copy editor to clean it up, and you should have seen the markups they did. I thought I had a pretty good grasp on the English language, but that was never my strong suit, like in high school. Also, you'll go through plenty of drafts. You will slash words, paragraphs, and complete pages. You'll move stuff around. Your blank page one is a slab of marble, and by the end of the process, you should create Michelangelo's David.
Fantastic advice for writers, right? Especially the part where don't pre-edit. At the end of the day, people, like you said, you're going to go through a lot of revisions. So, yeah, some grammatical errors that you have here and all that stuff. All of that will do is just prevent, because if you focus on it while you're writing, it's going to prevent the flow of writing. Just write. Get the thoughts out on the page. You'll come back and you can reformat and edit and do all that stuff later on. Now, great advice for writers. You want to take that same advice and expound it, really, to the human family. People, what he's talking about is practice makes perfect. The way you sharpen and hone in your skills is by doing it, right? Consistency, the repetition will really help to solidify whatever it is that you're doing. I love those words of wisdom. And people, you know what I love even more? Is we're at the end of the interview now. We've discussed so much information pertaining to his book, yet we've barely scratched the surface. I'm telling you, there's so much left to be discovered. Amazon, Barnes & Noble are the places you have to go. Return to Spirit is the title you have to pick up, and Christopher B. Soltis is the author you have to thank for bringing it to your table. An incredibly valuable resource to add to your shelf, an even better one to give to someone else. So head on over there today, pick up your copies. You surely will not be disappointed. Chris, this has been a pleasure, man. Such an honor. I truly mean that. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you so much, Benjie.